The morning started like any other Tuesday for Lisa Chen. She woke up at 6:30, made coffee, and checked her laptop one last time before heading out. The payment had finally cleared, $15,000 from her biggest client yet. 3 months of late nights, endless revisions, and video calls across different time zones had finally paid off. Literally. Lisa worked as a freelance graphic designer from home. No fancy office, no business suits, just her computer, and a whole lot of determination. She'd been building her business for 2 years now, slowly growing her client base from small local shops to mid-sized companies that actually paid decent money. This latest project had been a complete rebranding for a tech startup, and they'd loved her work so much they'd added a bonus. She grabbed her purse and headed out, wearing what she always wore when running errands. Comfortable jeans that had seen better days, a plain navy blue t-shirt, and her favorite sneakers that were definitely overdue for replacement. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup except for a bit of lip balm. Why would she dress up just to go to the bank? The drive to Premier Trust Bank took about 15 minutes. She'd been banking there for 5 years, ever since she moved to the city. Nice enough place, usually quiet on Tuesday mornings, and the staff had always been helpful. She'd deposited checks there dozens of times before without any issues. The bank looked impressive from the outside, all glass and marble, the kind of building that screamed success and stability. Lisa had never really thought much about it. A bank was a bank, right? She just needed to deposit her check, maybe grab some cash and get back home to start her next project. She pushed through the heavy glass doors and stepped into the cool, air-conditioned lobby. Marble floors reflected the bright lighting from above. Everything looked expensive and pristine. A few customers were scattered around, some waiting in line at the teller windows, others sitting in the plush chairs near the private banking offices. Lisa walked toward the teller line, pulling the check from her purse. She was excited, honestly. This was the biggest single payment she'd ever received. It felt like validation, proof that she'd made the right choice leaving her old office job to work for herself. "Excuse me." Lisa looked up to see a woman striding toward her, tall, probably in her early 30s, wearing an expensive-looking black pantsuit with heels that clicked sharply against the marble floor. Her blonde hair was styled in a perfect bob, and she carried herself with the kind of confidence that bordered on arrogance. The nameplate pinned to her jacket read Victoria Sterling, Branch Manager. "Yes," Lisa said, smiling politely. Victoria looked her up and down, her eyes lingering on Lisa's worn sneakers and faded jeans. There was something in her expression that made Lisa's stomach tighten. It wasn't friendly. It was the look someone gives a stray dog that wandered into their house. "Can I help you with something?" Victoria asked, her tone making it clear she wasn't really offering help. She was questioning whether Lisa should be there at all. "I'm just here to make a deposit," Lisa said, holding up her check. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "A deposit, I see. And where exactly did you get that check?" Lisa blinked, confused by the question. "I'm sorry?" "The check. Where did it come from?" Victoria crossed her arms, blocking Lisa's path to the teller line. "From a client. I'm a graphic designer. This is payment for a project I completed." Lisa felt her cheeks warming. Why was she being questioned like this? Victoria held out her hand. "May I see it?" Unsure what else to do, Lisa handed over the check. Victoria examined it like she was a detective looking for clues at a crime scene. Turning it over, holding it up to the light, studying every detail. $15,000, Victoria said slowly, her eyebrows raised. "That's quite a lot of money." "Yes, it was a big project," Lisa said, trying to keep her voice steady. Other customers were starting to look over. She could feel their eyes on her, and it made her skin crawl. "And you're sure this check is legitimate?" Victoria asked. Lisa felt a flash of anger cut through her confusion. "Of course it's legitimate. Why wouldn't it be?" "Well," Victoria said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "we have to be very careful about fraudulent checks. You understand. There are so many scams these days, and people come in here all the time trying to deposit fake checks. It's my job to protect the bank." "I've been banking here for 5 years, Lisa said, her voice rising slightly. "I've never had any problems before. You can check my account history." Victoria smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sure you understand that we have certain protocols we need to follow, especially for unusual transactions. This is a significant amount of money, and given—" She paused, looking Lisa up and down again. Given the circumstances, I think it's best if we take some time to verify everything. Lisa felt her face burning now. The circumstances? What circumstances? The fact that she wasn't wearing designer clothes? The fact that she looked like a regular person instead of some wealthy socialite? How long will that take? Lisa asked. Oh, several days at least. Maybe a week. We'll need to contact the issuing bank, verify the account, run all our checks. Standard procedure. Victoria handed the check back to Lisa. Why don't you come back next week and we'll see if everything clears? Next week? I've never had to wait a week to deposit a check before. Well, things change. We've implemented new security measures. I'm sure you want us to be thorough, don't you? Victoria's smile had an edge to it now, sharp and cold. Lisa looked past her at the teller line where she could see other customers making their transactions without any issues. One man in an expensive suit was laughing with a teller as she processed what looked like multiple checks. No one was questioning him. I'd really just like to make my deposit, Lisa said quietly. Victoria's expression hardened. And I've explained that's not possible right now. I think it would be better if you used one of our other branches, perhaps somewhere more. She paused again, choosing her words carefully. Suitable for your needs. We cater to a specific clientele here. The words hung in the air like a slap. Lisa felt her throat tighten. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Was this woman seriously telling her she didn't belong here because of how she looked? Are you refusing to let me make a deposit? Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm suggesting that you might be more comfortable elsewhere, Victoria said smoothly. Then she raised her voice slightly, loud enough for others to hear. Sir, could you come here, please? A security guard appeared from somewhere near the entrance, a middle-aged man who looked uncomfortable but obedient. This woman has a check we can't verify, Victoria said, her voice carrying across the lobby. I need you to escort her out while we look into the matter further. We can't risk fraud in this institution. The word fraud seemed to echo off the marble walls. Everyone was staring now. Lisa felt like she was going to be sick. This couldn't be happening. She'd done nothing wrong. She was a legitimate customer trying to make a legitimate deposit. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, the security guard said softly, looking apologetic but resigned. This is ridiculous, Lisa said, her voice shaking. I have an account here. I've been a customer for years. All I want to do is deposit a check from my business. Ma'am, please don't make this difficult, the guard said. Lisa looked around at the other customers. Some were filming on their phones. Others were whispering to each other. A few looked sympathetic, but no one said anything. No one stood up for her. She felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these people who were treating her like a criminal. Fine, she said, her voice tight. I'll leave. She turned and walked toward the door, the security guard following a few steps behind her like she was dangerous, like she might suddenly run off with the bank's money. The check felt heavy in her hand, like evidence of a crime she hadn't committed. As the glass doors closed behind her, she heard Victoria's voice, loud and clear. Thank you all for your patience. Just maintaining our security standards. Lisa stood on the sidewalk outside, watching people walk past, cars driving by, the world continuing like nothing had happened. But something had happened. She'd been humiliated, profiled, and kicked out of her own bank for no reason other than the fact that she didn't look like their idea of a successful person. Her hands were shaking as she pulled out her phone. She needed to call someone. She needed to tell someone what had just happened, and she knew exactly who to call. Her husband was going to want to hear about this. Lisa's hands trembled as she scrolled through her contacts. She found herself walking without thinking, her feet carrying her away from the bank, away from those staring eyes and that woman's condescending smile. She ended up at a small coffee shop 2 blocks down, slipping into a corner table where she could hide. The check sat on the table in front of her, mocking her. $15,000 that should have been a celebration, a milestone in her career. Instead, it felt like a scarlet letter, like proof that she didn't belong in fancy buildings with marble floors. She pressed the call button next to David's name. Her husband, her partner for the last 8 years, the man who'd supported her dream of going freelance even when it meant tighter budgets and uncertain income. He was in meetings all morning, she knew that, but she needed to hear his voice. The phone rang once, twice. She almost hung up, thinking maybe she should just handle this herself. Maybe she was overreacting, but then she remembered that woman's face, that look of disgust, the security guard walking behind her like she was some kind of threat. "Hey, love," David answered, his voice warm and familiar. "I'm between meetings. Everything okay?" Lisa opened her mouth to say yes, to tell him everything was fine, to handle it herself like she always did. But instead something broke inside her and the words came tumbling out. "They kicked me out of the bank." Silence on the other end. Then carefully, "What?" "Premier Trust, our bank. I went to deposit the check from the tech startup, the $15,000 one, and the manager, she—" Lisa's voice cracked. She took a breath, trying to steady herself. "She looked at me like I was dirt. Asked where I got the money. Said the check looked suspicious. Then she had security escort me out in front of everyone." She could hear David's breathing change, could imagine him standing up from wherever he was sitting, his jaw tightening the way it did when he was angry. "She did what?" His voice was quiet, controlled. But Lisa had been married to him long enough to recognize the fury underneath. "She said I should try a different branch, one more suitable for my needs, because I was wearing jeans and sneakers, because I don't look like whatever her idea of a successful person is." The words were coming faster now. 8 years of small humiliations, of being underestimated, of being judged by her appearance, all pouring out. "David," everyone was staring. People were filming. "She announced to the whole bank that she couldn't verify my check. Used the word fraud like I was some kind of criminal. And I just stood there. I didn't know what to do." "Where are you right now?" David asked. "Coffee shop near the bank. That little one on Morrison Street." "I'm coming." "No, you don't have to. You have meetings. I know you've been working on the Henderson deal all week, and I just—" "Lisa." His voice was firm but gentle. "I'm coming. Stay there. Order something. I'll be there in 20 minutes. "David, really, you don't need to drop everything. What's the manager's name?" Lisa paused. "Victoria Sterling, why?" Another moment of silence. Then David said something that surprised her. "Stay there." "Actually, no. Can you wait for me at the coffee shop? I need to make a few calls, and then I'm going to take care of this." "Take care of what?" "David, what are you going to do?" "What I should have done a long time ago," he said cryptically. "Just trust me, okay? Order your favorite drink. Get one of those chocolate croissants you like. I'll be there soon." He hung up before she could ask more questions. Lisa stared at her phone, confused but feeling slightly better. David had that effect on her. Even when the world felt like it was falling apart, he somehow made it seem manageable. She ordered a latte and a croissant she didn't really want, then sat back down to wait. While she waited, she replayed the entire scene in her head. Had she done something wrong? Should she have pushed back harder? Should she have asked to speak to someone else? But no, she'd done nothing wrong. She was a customer trying to make a legitimate transaction. The problem wasn't her. The problem was that manager who decided Lisa wasn't good enough for her precious bank. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. "On my way. Made some calls. Everything's going to be okay." 20 minutes later, David walked through the coffee shop door. He was wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, his usual work attire. Though Lisa knew most people expected someone in his position to wear expensive suits every day. He'd never been that guy. Too much focus on appearance, he always said. Better to focus on substance. He spotted her immediately and crossed the room, pulling her into a hug before she could even stand up. "You okay?" he murmured against her hair. "I'm fine. Just angry. And embarrassed." He pulled back, his hands on her shoulders, looking directly into her eyes. "You have nothing to be embarrassed about, nothing. This is not your fault." "I know, but no buts. What happened was wrong. Completely, unacceptably wrong." He sat down across from her and she noticed he had his phone in his hand, like he'd been using it in the car. "I made a few calls on the drive over. Talked to some people who need to hear about this." "What people?" "David, what's going on?" He leaned back, and for the first time since he'd arrived, she saw a small, grim smile. "Do you know why I never talk much about work? Why I don't have photos in my office or business cards with fancy titles?" Lisa frowned. "Because you're private? Because you don't like showing off?" "Partly. But also because I think the moment people know who you are, what you own, they start treating you differently. And I've always wondered if the businesses I built were succeeding because they were actually good, or just because people recognized my name." "Okay," Lisa said slowly, not understanding where this was going. David took a breath. Lisa, you know I own several businesses. Real estate investments, that consulting firm. You know all that. Of course. What I haven't really emphasized, because it never seemed important, is that one of those investments is a controlling share in a regional bank. A bank I helped start about 20 years ago, fresh out of business school. Put most of my savings into it. Built it from the ground up with some partners who've since retired. Lisa's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. What bank? Premier Trust Bank. The words hung in the air between them. Lisa felt her mind go blank, then race, then blank again. You own the bank. The bank that just kicked me out. You own it. Majority shareholder, technically. But yes, I own it. How did I not know this? David ran a hand through his hair, looking sheepish. Because I'm almost never there? Because I let the board and the regional directors handle day-to-day operations? Because I built it to run without me so I could focus on other projects? Take your pick. But Lisa, I built that bank on a very specific principle. Every customer deserves respect. Every single one. Rich, poor, doesn't matter. You walk through those doors, you're treated with dignity. That was the foundation of everything. Lisa felt something shift in her chest. And this Victoria person violated that. Spectacularly. And she's about to learn a very important lesson about judging people by their appearance. He checked his phone. I called the regional director. And the head of HR, they're meeting me at the bank in about 15 minutes. You're going there? Now? Yes, and I'd like you to wait here if that's okay. I don't want you to have to go through anything else today. But Lisa, I promise you this is going to be handled. Properly. Lisa looked at her husband, this man she'd lived with for 8 years, who worked from home offices and wore casual clothes and drove a 7-year-old car. This man who apparently owned the bank that had just humiliated her. Why didn't you ever tell me you owned the bank? He smiled, reaching across the table to take her hand. For the same reason I don't tell people I own half the commercial buildings downtown. Because it doesn't matter. Because what matters is who we are, not what we have. And because I never ever want people to treat us differently because of money or power or titles. His expression hardened. But right now I'm going to use every bit of that power to make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else. He stood up, finishing the last of her coffee. Stay here. Read a book. Browse your phone. I'll text you when it's done. David? He turned back. Thank you. For what? For believing me. For not asking if I did something wrong. For just believing me. His expression softened. Lisa, I've known you for 8 years. You're the kindest, most honest person I've ever met. If someone treated you like that, it's because they're the problem, not you. Always. He bent down and kissed her forehead. I'll be back soon. And love? Yeah? That woman at the bank? She has no idea what's about to happen. No idea who she messed with. And I'm not talking about me. He smiled. I'm talking about you. Because you're about to become the reason that bank remembers to treat every customer with respect. With that, he walked out of the coffee shop, leaving Lisa sitting there with cold coffee and a lot of questions. She watched through the window as he got into his car and drove away, back toward the bank where a woman named Victoria Sterling was about to have a very bad day. Lisa pulled out her phone and did something she rarely did. She Googled her husband's full name plus Premier Trust Bank. The results made her eyes widen. Articles about the bank's founding. David's name listed as founder and primary shareholder. Photos from ribbon-cutting ceremonies years ago. David pulled into the parking lot of Premier Trust Bank and sat in his car for a moment, letting his anger settle into something cold and focused. He'd built this bank on principles that mattered to him. Respect, dignity, equal treatment, and someone had just violated every single one of them. He checked his phone. 2 messages, one from Robert Chen, the regional director, saying he was 10 minutes away. Another from Patricia Walsh, head of HR, saying she was already inside waiting in the conference room. Good. This needed to be handled properly. By the book, with witnesses. David stepped out of his car and walked toward the entrance. He'd only been to this particular branch twice in the last year, both times unannounced, just checking in on how things were running. He preferred it that way. The moment people knew the owner was watching, they acted differently. He wanted to see how the bank really operated, not some performance put on for his benefit. The glass doors slid open, and he stepped into the familiar marble lobby. Nothing had changed since his last visit 6 months ago. Same expensive finishes, same quiet atmosphere of money and stability. A handful of customers were scattered around, some at the teller windows, others waiting in the plush chairs. And there, behind the customer service desk, sat Victoria Sterling. David recognized her from her employee file, which he'd pulled up on his phone during the drive over. Hired 3 months ago by the district manager, who'd apparently been impressed by her resume. 5 years at a competing bank, excellent sales numbers, glowing recommendations. On paper, she looked perfect. On paper didn't account for character. He watched her for a moment, staying near the entrance where she wouldn't notice him. She was helping a customer, an older gentleman in an expensive suit, and her demeanor was completely different from how Lisa had described her earlier encounter. Warm smile, attentive posture. She laughed at something the man said, leaning forward like they were old friends. David felt his jaw tighten. So she could be pleasant. She just chose not to be with people she deemed unworthy of her time. He walked further into the lobby, deliberately casual, hands in his pockets. Just another customer. Nothing special. He was wearing khakis and a regular button-down shirt, no tie, no jacket. The same kind of outfit he wore every day. The same kind of outfit that would probably make Victoria Sterling dismiss him as unremarkable. He approached her desk slowly, waiting for her to finish with the suited gentleman. When she finally looked up at him, her expression shifted almost imperceptibly. A slight flattening of her smile. A quick assessment from head to toe. He could practically see her categorizing him as low priority. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice polite but lacking the warmth she'd shown the previous customer. "I hope so," David said quietly. "I need to speak with you about a complaint." Victoria's smile tightened. "A complaint? About what exactly?" "About how you treated a customer this morning. A woman who came in to deposit a check." Something flickered across Victoria's face. Defensiveness maybe, or annoyance. "Sir, I handle dozens of customers every day. If you have a formal complaint, you'll need to fill out the proper paperwork." "I can get you the forms." "That won't be necessary," David said. "I'd like you to tell me in your own words what happened with Lisa Chen this morning." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "I'm sorry, but I can't discuss other customers' transactions with you. Privacy policies. I'm sure you understand. I'm her husband." The words seemed to hit Victoria like cold water. Her posture stiffened. "Oh, well, in that case, I'm sure your wife explained that we have certain protocols for suspicious transactions. We have to protect the bank's interests." "Suspicious," David repeated. What exactly was suspicious about a customer depositing a check from her business? Victoria's confidence wavered slightly, but she recovered quickly. The amount was unusually large, and given her circumstances, we felt it was necessary to exercise additional caution. Her circumstances? Well, yes. I mean, she came in wearing very casual clothing, and when someone presents a check for $15,000 looking like they just came from... Victoria paused, seeming to realize she was digging herself deeper. "We have to be vigilant about fraud. Surely you can understand that." David let the silence stretch between them. He watched as Victoria shifted in her seat, her fingers drumming nervously on her desk. Finally, he said very quietly, "Do you know who I am?" Victoria blinked. "Should I?" "My name is David Martinez." For a moment, nothing happened. The name seemed to mean nothing to her. Then slowly recognition dawned. Her face went pale. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. "The David Martinez," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The founder and majority shareholder of Premier Trust Bank," David confirmed. "The man who built this institution from the ground up 20 years ago. And the husband of the woman you humiliated and threw out this morning." The color had completely drained from Victoria's face. She stood up abruptly, her chair rolling backward. "Mr. Martinez, I had no idea." If you'd known that she was married to someone important, you would have treated her differently," David interrupted. "That's what you were about to say, isn't it?" "No, I just meant... You meant that you judge people based on their appearance and their perceived status. You decided my wife wasn't worthy of basic respect because she was wearing jeans and old sneakers. You profiled her, questioned the legitimacy of her income, and had her escorted out of the bank like a criminal. In front of other customers, some of whom were filming. By now the lobby had gone quiet. Other customers had stopped what they were doing. The tellers had frozen at their stations. Everyone was watching. Victoria's hands were shaking. "Mr. Martinez, please, I was just trying to protect the bank." We get people coming in all the time trying to deposit fraudulent checks, and I thought, you thought what? That someone in casual clothes couldn't possibly have earned $15,000, honestly? David's voice was still quiet, but it carried across the marble lobby. Did you check her account history before you judged her? Did you see that she's been a customer here for 5 years with an excellent record? No, I didn't check. But the amount was so large, and she just didn't seem what, Victoria? Didn't seem like your idea of a successful person? Didn't dress the way you think wealthy people should dress? Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish. No sound came out. The door opened behind them and Robert Chen walked in, followed by a younger woman David recognized as Patricia Walsh from HR. Robert was in his 50s, Asian American, wearing his usual neat suit. He'd been with the bank almost as long as David had. Patricia was newer, maybe 5 years with the company, but David had always appreciated her no-nonsense approach to personnel issues. They both spotted David immediately and hurried over. David, Robert said, his face grave. He nodded to Victoria, whose expression had somehow become even more horrified. I came as soon as I got your call. Patricia's been reviewing the security footage from this morning. And? David asked. Patricia stepped forward, tablet in hand. I've watched the entire interaction 3 times. There was nothing suspicious about Mrs. Martinez's behavior. She entered the bank, stood in line, and was approached by Ms. Sterling before she could even reach a teller. Ms. Sterling questioned her extensively, made several condescending comments that I can document, refused to process the transaction, and called security to remove Mrs. Martinez from the premises. She tapped her tablet screen, turning it toward Victoria. I also pulled up Mrs. Martinez's account history. 5 years with the bank. Regular deposits and withdrawals. Current balance well into 6 figures. Excellent credit score. There was absolutely no reason to question her transaction or her legitimacy as a customer. Victoria looked like she might be sick. I was trying to protect the bank, she said weakly. No, David said. You were protecting your own prejudices, and in the process you violated every principle this bank was founded on. Robert cleared his throat. I also did some checking after your call. I pulled Ms. Sterling's interaction records for the past 3 months. He pulled out his own tablet, scrolling through what appeared to be a long document. In her time here, she's had 12 complaints filed against her. Most were dismissed by the district manager, but the pattern is clear. Every complaint came from customers who were dressed casually or appeared to be working class. Meanwhile, her customer satisfaction scores with high net worth individuals are excellent. She's been cherry-picking which customers deserve good service. Victoria's voice was desperate now. Those complaints were all misunderstandings. People being too sensitive. I was just being thorough. You were being discriminatory, Patricia said flatly, and discrimination is grounds for immediate termination. The words seemed to echo in the quiet lobby. Victoria swayed slightly, gripping the edge of her desk. Please, she said, her voice cracking. I need this job. I have bills, rent. I was just trying to do my job well. I didn't mean to offend anyone. The lobby remained silent as Victoria was escorted toward the exit, her heels clicking against the marble floor for the last time. David watched her go, feeling no satisfaction, just a grim determination to make sure this never happened again. He turned to face the customers and employees who'd witnessed everything. About a dozen people scattered throughout the lobby, some standing frozen at teller windows, others sitting in the waiting area. Every eye was on him. My name is David Martinez, he said, his voice calm but firm. I founded this bank 20 years ago on a very simple principle. Every person who walks through these doors is valuable. Every single one. Your worth isn't determined by your clothes, your car, or how much money you have in your account. You're valuable because you're a human being, and you deserve to be treated with respect. An older woman in the waiting area started clapping. Then another person joined in. Within seconds, several customers were applauding, and David felt heat rise to his cheeks. He held up a hand. Please, that's not necessary. What happened here today should never have occurred in the first place. The fact that I had to come here to correct it is a failure on our part. He looked at the tellers, at the assistant manager who'd been hiding in his office, at every employee present. We failed my wife this morning. We failed every customer who's been treated poorly because they didn't fit someone's narrow idea of what success looks like. Robert Chen stepped forward, his tablet still in hand. David's right, and this isn't an isolated incident. I've been reviewing the complaints that were filed and dismissed over the past 3 months. There's a clear pattern. He began reading from his screen. A construction worker trying to deposit his paycheck was told he should use the ATM instead because he was getting dirt on the floor. A nurse coming off a night shift was questioned extensively about the legitimacy of her hospital paycheck. A young couple trying to open their first savings account was lectured about fiscal responsibility and told they should wait until they had more money. Each example made David angrier. This was exactly what he'd tried to prevent when he founded the bank. He'd grown up without money, had worked construction jobs through college, knew what it felt like to be judged by your appearance. That's why he'd built Premier Trust to be different. Where was the district manager during all this? David asked. Robert's expression darkened. James Peterson. He's been dismissing these complaints, saying the customers were being oversensitive or that they were misunderstanding standard security procedures. Where is he now? I called him on my way over. He's apparently on a golf course entertaining potential high-net-worth clients. David felt his jaw tighten. Of course he is. Because that's what matters to him. The big accounts. The prestigious customers. He pulled out his phone. Get him on the line, now. While Robert made the call, Patricia Walsh stepped forward. David, I need to show you something else. She pulled up another screen on her tablet. I reviewed all of Victoria Sterling's hiring documents. Her resume was impressive, but 3 of her references are from the same competing bank where she worked. When I called that bank to verify her employment, I spoke with their HR department. They were very careful about what they said, but reading between the lines, I think she was encouraged to resign before they fired her. Similar issues with customer discrimination. And our district manager didn't catch this? Patricia's expression was uncomfortable. It appears he didn't do a thorough reference check. He saw her sales numbers and hired her on the spot. Robert returned, holding out his phone. I have James Peterson on speaker. A man's voice came through, irritated and defensive. Robert, what's so urgent that you had to interrupt my afternoon? I'm in the middle of an important meeting. This is David Martinez, David said, taking the phone. The silence that followed was almost comical, then scrambling sounds like someone moving quickly. Mr. Martinez. I didn't realize. Robert didn't say. Is everything all right? No, James, everything is not all right. I'm standing in the Morrison Street branch right now. Do you know why? No, sir. Because this morning a manager you hired threw my wife out of the bank, accused her of fraud, humiliated her in front of other customers, and had security escort her out. All because she was wearing jeans. More silence. Then weakly, your wife? My wife, Lisa Martinez. A customer of 5 years with an excellent account history. A freelance designer who was trying to deposit a legitimate business check. But Victoria Sterling decided she didn't look successful enough to be treated with respect. Mr. Martinez, I had no idea. If you'd known she was my wife, you would have cared. That's the problem, James. You should care about every customer, not just the ones connected to someone important. David could hear the panic in James Peterson's voice now. Sir, I assure you this is not how we operate. Victoria Sterling must have made a mistake. I'll speak with her immediately and Victoria Sterling has already been terminated. What I want to know is how you hired someone with a history of discriminatory behavior without doing a proper background check, and why you've been dismissing valid customer complaints for the past 3 months. I didn't dismiss them. I investigated each one thoroughly. Did you? David's voice was cold. Because I'm looking at a report right now that shows 12 complaints, all from customers who didn't fit your demographic preferences and all dismissed with almost identical language. You didn't investigate. You protected someone who was bringing in high net worth accounts at the expense of regular people. He could hear other voices in the background. Probably the clients James had been golfing with. No doubt wondering what was happening. James, here's what's going to happen. You're on probation. Effective immediately. For the next 6 months, every hiring decision you make will be reviewed by HR. Every complaint filed in your district will be escalated to Robert, and you're going to personally call every customer who filed a complaint about Victoria Sterling and apologize. Then you're going to review your protocols and figure out how we make sure this never happens again. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Mr. Martinez, I promise you, don't promise me. Show me, through your actions. Because if I see one more incident like this, if one more customer is treated as less than because of how they look or how much they have in their account, you're done. Am I clear? Crystal clear, sir. David ended the call and handed the phone back to Robert. He felt exhausted suddenly, drained by anger and disappointment. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. He'd built something good, something that mattered, and people had corrupted it with their prejudices and their obsession with appearances. Patricia cleared her throat gently. David, there's something you should know. Several customers filmed the incident with Mrs. Martinez this morning. At least 2 videos have already been posted online. David closed his eyes briefly. Of course, this was the age of social media, where every humiliation could be broadcast to thousands of people within hours. What are they saying? Mixed reactions. Some people are defending the bank's right to verify transactions, but most are outraged. They're sharing their own stories of being discriminated against at banks, retail stores, restaurants. It's resonating with a lot of people. Can I see? Patricia pulled up one of the videos on her tablet. David watched as his wife approached the counter, smiling, holding her check. Watched as Victoria Sterling intercepted her, the suspicion already clear on the manager's face. The audio wasn't great, but he could hear Victoria's condescending tone, could see Lisa's expression change from friendly to confused, to hurt. Then came the moment that made his blood boil. Victoria announcing loudly that the check couldn't be verified, using the word fraud, calling for security. And Lisa's face trying so hard to maintain composure while everyone stared. The video ended with Lisa walking out, the security guard behind her and Victoria turning to the other customers with a self-satisfied expression, saying something about maintaining security standards. The comments below the video were thousands strong already. This happened to me at a jewelry store. They followed me around like I was going to steal something. I'm a doctor and I still get treated like this when I'm not in my work clothes. It's exhausting. How many times do we have to tell people that you can't judge someone's worth by their appearance? David handed the tablet back. Let them talk. Let people share their stories. Maybe this needed to happen. Maybe we needed this wake-up call. He turned to address the employees again. Starting next week, every employee at every branch is going to go through mandatory training. Not just a video you watch and click through. Real training about implicit bias, about treating people with dignity, about understanding that success looks different for everyone. The assistant manager, a nervous-looking man in his 30s, raised his hand tentatively. Mr. Martinez, sir, what about the customers who do try to commit fraud? We do see that sometimes. How do we balance security with respect? It was a fair question. David appreciated that someone was brave enough to ask it. Good question. Security is important, but there's a difference between following protocols and profiling people. If someone comes in with a check, you verify it through Pro.